Hello, everyone. I am Karen Stanley, your host of the Envision, Accelerate, Excel podcast, where we allow leaders, proven leaders, to share their backstory. Often, people say, "You see my glory, but you don't know the story." Well, here at the Envision, Accelerate, Excel podcast, we are so excited to be able to hear firsthand from leaders who have taken their vision to reality. And today, I am so happy to welcome my guest, Rhonda Briggins, attorney Rhonda Briggins. She is the president of D4 Women in Action, a group affiliated with Delta Sigma Theta sorority. Full disclosure, we are both members of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. And we know that Delta is committed to sisterhood, service, scholarship, and social action. And Rhonda Briggins is one of our members who takes our social action to new levels, higher heights, and as we say, D4 Women in Action. In today's episode, we're going to chat with Rhonda about the evolution and the birth of D4 Women in Action. And I just want to share with you a little of her background. And you'll want to know that she was really preparing for this role all of her life. She has over 20 years experience in governmental affairs at the state, local, and national level. She has been a member of executive management team at Jacobs Engineering as the vice president, client account manager for transit services. She retired at the age of 45. Now, I don't believe that because when you see this, when you see her face, you're going to think, well, she's not 45 yet. But according to her story, she retired at the age of 45 from MARTA, the Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority, where she served as the Senior Director of External Affairs for MARTA. Now, having the educational foundation of a bachelor's degree plus a Juris Doctorate, Attorney Briggins utilizes her skills in the area of social action, political analysis. She has been on TV in various CNN broadcasts and others. She is a sought after political analyst, political awareness raiser, and get out the vote empowerment powerhouse. So without further ado, we want to welcome our guest today, Rhonda Briggins.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. And thank you for allowing me to share my story on your platform.
Absolutely. And Rhonda, I'd love to understand a little bit about how you got here as a person. And then toward the end of the episode, we'll talk about the birth of D4 Women in Action. So I'm wondering, when did you get the vision, catch on fire for social action and government affairs?
Well, Karen, just like you, I'm an Alabama girl. So born and raised in Birmingham, Alabama. I had the great fortune to go to the Alabama School of Fine Arts in high school. Once I got to high school around my freshman year, and as you know, I don't know if you know about School of Fine Arts, but students that attend the School of Fine Arts in Birmingham, they come from all over the world. And we had that particular year a group of young ladies that came from Selma, Alabama. One of my friends from high school was Malika Sanders. She is her parents are both attorney Rose Sanders and Hank Sanders, or former Senator Hank Sanders, from the great state of Alabama for well over 30 plus years. Well, that was my friend. And at that particular time, Malika literally would come to my house every weekend, hang out. Did not know her parents were these civil rights icons. Of course, as you know, they both went to Harvard Law School and came back to Alabama, moved to Selma to continue that civil rights fight. And so Malika and I became friends. I'll never forget, we were outside. Her mom showed up one day and just said, "Hey, we're going to go to DC next weekend and you're going to go too, Rhonda. I said, oh, okay. We end up going to DC that particular weekend. They were doing some work around youth on Howard's campus. And I got the great opportunity to meet our other soror, Camille Cosby, and a whole bunch of others. They were releasing this book that I have always loved and just adored. That depicted all of the lives of all of these amazing, amazing Black women. And so um, Camille Cosby was there, Rose was there. We were on Howard University campus. I'm getting ready to go to college, and it was just all of my worlds collided at once. After that particular session, I continued to be a part of their organization, which was 21st Century Youth Leadership Movement. 21st Century basically was the stomping ground in Alabama and the foundational place and where they train young people to have a social and moral compass about their community and wrapped in the love of Blackness and the love of history. And so I just began to learn from all of our civil rights leaders, James Orange, John Lewis, Miss King was still alive. Coretta Scott King was still alive at that particular time. So she would always come over to camp, and Juanita Abernathy, Reverend Jesse Jackson, who unfortunately passed this week, was also an icon and a person that, I got to always be around as a young person. Dick Gregory, the list just goes on and on. Sonia Sanchez. I mean, everyone you could look in the books, if they were still alive during those days and times, they would come through our camps as young people and just tell us about our responsibilities as a young person, our responsibilities for our community, the importance of fighting for our rights as Black people. And so that's what we did. And I have continued to do that type of work ever since then. Although I've worked in corporate America, I've always had my free job, is what I call it. My free job.
So true, so true.
My free job is always have been to be on the battlefield. And so I have always balanced both of those worlds, very different, but at the same time, very necessary for the work that we should do when it comes to our communities. We should always be about social injustice, social empowerment, as well as economic empowerment. And so I carry both of those banners everywhere I go to make sure that not only the generation which shoulders who in which I stand, I will give them the honor and can try to continue their legacy while hedging forward to the generations to come to make sure they have a foundation and a place to start to continue the work of our ancestors. So that is the backstory, Karen.
I love that. I love that, Rhonda. We are Alabama sisters. And I think that all over Alabama, there's that feeling for our generation that the civil rights movement happened for us and we can't let it die. In my case, and I think I'm hearing what you say when we talk of Envision, Accelerate, Excel, you caught the vision from civil rights icons. They had to make themselves available to the next generation. And we're going to come back to that because when you talk about acceleration, it's not something you can do alone, acceleration and elevation of the movement. But I want to talk about some of our other visionary luminaries who may not have been from Alabama, but certainly, well, actually she was. I want to talk about Alexis Herman. I'm wondering if you knew Alexis Herman, the late Alexis Herman. And one of my great regrets in life, the last time I attended an NCNW meeting, shortly after Dr. Lois was elected as chair, Alexis Herman said, I'll be on your podcast, Karen. Sure. Let's just work it out with my assistant. And do you know, before I could do that, she had passed. So I just want to pay homage to another Alabama civil rights icon who worked her way up the ranks from the Labor Department, the chair of the women's agency within the Labor Department, all the way to Secretary of Labor, Alexis Herman. What did you know about Alexis?
Let me tell you about Alexis Herman. First of all, I so miss her.
Yes.
Um, and Alexis, Siobhan and I developed a really strong relationship with Alexis Herman when we were social action co-chairs.
Hmm.
And so for everyone in your podcast, that position in Delta Sigma Theta is basically where you chair the political arm of the organization, all of our social justice activities. And so Alexis Herman was at that particular time our one of our leaders. She was an honorary chair for us. The chair she was the honorary chair. Gwen Boyd was the chair emeritus, but Alexis was the honorary chair with Siobhan and I. And so, what that meant of serving as honorary chair, she was basically the person in which we call to run ideas by and begin to strategize with and get some guidance from and that relationship began to grow and continued to grow after that. Um, and that's why when I talked about my social justice part, I also talked about the professional part because Alexis was the person that fed in us both ways. She made sure that we were on the front lines of social action and social justice, but also on the front line of economic development and also whatever type of economic opportunities existed. She was there to also help and guide us. Siobhan and I both own consulting firms. And so when there were professional opportunities and to serve on corporate boards and all of those good things, Alexis was always there to push us and to guide us during all of those endeavors over the years. And so many times where if she felt like she didn't have any time or if I was about to go through a certain phase in life, she would say, "Come spend the weekend with me." And
Huh.
I would go and we would basically have a slumber party. And so, we would sit and I would sit and listen to her. Her house was like a museum. So I'm sitting and I'm asking all these questions and going looking at pictures and what about this picture? I remember one day Siobhan and I spent the entire day with her at the NCNW office and well, the building, not the office, but the building.
Right.
And we
Uh-huh.
were in her office in the building. And I mean, she just had piles and piles of pictures and awards and this. And we would like hold a picture up and say, "Hey, what about this? What's going on here? And what about this?" And she would just tell us, I mean, stories after stories after stories all day. We stayed all day listening to all of the historic stories, her story with her in Sora Heights Dorothy Heights, as you all know, that was like her mom, her mentor, the person that also she was Dorothy. Everything she was for Siobhan and I, Dorothy Heights was for her, and so she would tell us how Sora Height was the one that got her started in this political space. Sora Height was the one that pushed her to the White House. Sora Height was the one that pushed her to the labor department. Sora Height was the one that pushed her to these corporate boards. Like every moment in every aspect of her life, Sora Height was there to help guide and lead her, make recommendations, suggest her. That's why you got to have somebody in the room when you're not in the room that's saying your name. And so she was that person for us. And just as Dorothy Heights was that person for her. And so for the last 5 years of her life, I got to be be intimately a part of her life. And that was something I'm going to forever treasure. The last couple of days before she transitioned, again, I was in DC. Siobhan and I kept calling, trying to check on her. And she finally told them, let them come over. And they told us before we got there that we could only be there for an hour. And we were there for half a day. And we
Oh,
sat and we laughed and we cried and we laughed. But I would have not imagined during that particular time that would be our last time with her. Um,
oh,
and Siobhan and I also were a part of the chosen sorors that participated in her Omega Omega. And so another very special thing to be chosen out of all of the 1,000 people that she knows, to be chosen to be a part of her Omega Omega. So
That is such a special memory. We have to say that we stand on the shoulders, and I appreciate that you acknowledge all of the shoulders that you stand on. Now, this podcast is also supported, as you mentioned, about consulting companies, by my consulting company, which is called Key Success Factors. And it's a strategic planning organization for individuals or for organizations. But the point of that is to say that actually, some of my own Delta mentors pushed me in that direction. And on our podcast, we like to glean jewels from what our guests are sharing with us. And you just shared the key success factor number one of catching the vision from those ahead of you. And number two, aligning with mentors and allowing them to pour into you, to give. Everyone can't take advice. Some folks, and they say in a certain age generation, we think we know everything, and we may shy away from elders, or they're not interested in technology, or we give ourselves all kinds of excuses. But let me say, you would miss out on your moment if you don't take advantage of mentoring opportunities. I'll share my mentoring story. And we have to say that Delta and other sororities and networks and organizations are a great way to find mentors, because you may just meet somebody at a convention. The way that I got involved in NCNW was that I met Jean Noble at a convention, Dr. Jean Noble, our 12th national president. And I had recently graduated from business school, and she thought that was just a wonderful thing, because in her day, there weren't any Blacks really graduating from the Ivy League business schools. They were fully qualified, but it just hadn't happened yet. So she thought so much of that achievement that she invited me to be a part of the Dr. Dorothy I. Height Leadership Institute. And so I became a consultant of NCNW, and my job was to write cases by, for, and about women in leadership situations. Because if you look in academia, it's only recently that schools like Harvard or Wharton, Stanford have begun to get serious about having Black protagonists, and even I would say women protagonists, in their academic curriculum. So I was writing cases that would speak to presidents of sorority chapters or presidents of other affiliate organizations, national, strategic, or national executive committees. And all of this was funded by the Kellogg Foundation. So now I want to move a little bit into how we can catch the vision, listen to our mentors, but begin to access resources, because it takes resources to advance not only political empowerment, economic development, bridge the digital divide, the health divide, and so much more. And so in the case of NCNW, that Leadership Institute was funded by a $500,000 grant from the Kellogg Foundation. And that's another segue to a question I want to be sure to ask you about, which is, tell us about foundations. Tell us about D4 Women in Action, how it is related as a 501c4 organization to the sister organizations C3 and C7. Can you tell us a little bit about foundations and how they resource themselves for the work they do?
Okay, well, foundations really are on the foundation side. Mostly a foundation is the entity that is used to give money away to causes. So that's really what foundations are. So DREF is our foundation. It's a 501c3, which is a foundation, and that organization does give money away. It has different programs and where they will grant individuals, mainly on the educational side of issues, because it's entitled Delta's Research Educational Foundation. So it is centered around research and education. And so they give grant money and different awards out for individuals in that area around education.
Scholarships, can we just state scholarships?
And,
Many
and scholarships as well.
Mhm.
Yes, and scholarships. And then the other thing is that's the foundational side. That's the 3 side for Delta. And then the other side of a 3, as you know too, Karen, it helps to, I guess, become the flow through organization for the chapters. They're kind of nonprofit affairs. And they help in that way as well. And Delta, which is we call it Big Delta, which is our headquarters. And Big Delta, which is a 501c7 organization, which allows individuals to come together in a social manner through membership. And with that, those types of tax exemption status, they cannot engage in different political activities. And some of those political activities that they cannot engage in is partisan political activities. And so anything dealing with candidates and campaigns and legislation and all of those things, those are not places and where our C3 and C7 can engage. And so when we were in the middle of COVID, George Floyd hit. It was a constant stream of police brutality in this country. Ahmaud Arbery, Sandra Bland, and as you all know, the list goes on. And people took to the streets. We're in the middle of COVID. And so our members said they were going to the streets. We knew at that particular time we had to have some level of protection for the organization, especially under that particular political presidential administration. And we said we got to do something. And because we can't jeopardize the tax status of the 7. And so we decided to create a 4. A 501c4 organization to basically become the protection layer and put a layer of protection between the 7 and the activities of our sorors, which at that particular point were headed towards becoming very partisan. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to have a hedge of protection, and we created the 4. Now, the 4 can do tons of things. The 4 is also allowed to do nonpartisan things. And so we still partner with Delta and social action on nonpartisan issues. So get out the vote, education around various issues that are impacting the African-American community. We make sure that we are lock and sync in educating and being a part of that level of collaboration together. And we also do tons of other things with them around, like right now this weekend, we're going to be doing a screening of Barbara Jordan's documentary coming up really soon. We participate in all of their social action activities, and we partner with them and chapters in many ways to ensure that we are doing what we need to do to raise the awareness around these critical issues in the Black community. But going beyond that, we can lobby on this side of the house. We have not triggered that tool yet, but we're in the process of doing that very soon. And where we could in the future have a lobbyist on the Hill on behalf of Delta for Women in Action. We can endorse candidates over here. We can run campaigns on behalf of candidates. We can't do any direct coordination, but we can run an independent campaign on behalf of those candidates. What does that mean? That means we can phone bank, we can knock on doors, we could buy ads, we can do everything that the candidates will be doing on their own behalf, but we'll be doing it on this side on their behalf as well. The goal is that we both meet in the middle and push together over the winning line. And where they win their elections. And so we have tons of programs on the D4 side of the house. We currently are running a cohort of candidates running in state houses. Our goal there is that the state is where this political arena, where we might have a chance to do some advancement of policies, making sure that all, as you know, all politics is local. So those laws impact people's lives in a very direct way. The federal does, but all of the federal dollars go to the state, and from the state, they're pushed down. But here, this is a direct correlation of everyone's lives, and the impacts on your lives really come directly from the state and your local governments. And so that's why we've been focusing on state races. And then we're going to make sure we help to get out the vote for those races as well. We do Crimson and Cream fundraising, and that is where we help to raise funds in a very independent way, away from the campaign, and raise funds for candidates. And so that they're making sure that they are having the resources they need to do what they need to do during their campaigns. And then we also make sure that we're doing and supporting our collegiates. We want to make sure we're educating the next generation in this political space, training them about internships, training them of how to run campaigns, training them of an array of things in the political professional space.
Yes.
Then finally, we train candidates how to run a campaign. And so as a part of that cohort, we are training them from start to finish of how to run their campaign, but more importantly, getting them to the victory line and so that they'll have some strong wins. We are very encouraged by this last election cycle. Karen, I don't know if you saw it, but almost every woman and Black woman, especially on the ballot, they won. And so we're excited about the future in this country, and where we think there's going to be a lot of seats that people will pick up around this country. One of the things I did the other night, I had a judicial meet and greet where we were working with all of the judicial candidates and allowing people to understand their roles in that judicial branch. I keep telling people there are 3 branches of government. I know
Absolutely.
we don't feel that right now, but there are 3 branches of government. And right now, the judicial branch has been a lifesaver for us. And we need to continue to make sure we support those people in that judicial space, making sure that everyone is holding the line, because right now we need the legislative and the judicial to do something with the executive branch. And
there you go. There you go.
And so that's what we're trying to do, Karen. We are doing our parts. Like I told you, I grew up with people that told me I had a social and moral responsibility, and I am trying to live up to that legacy and making sure that we, ordinary people, because I told you I lived in Selma, Alabama, ordinary people did some extraordinary things. And so it doesn't take a rocket science. It doesn't take you having a master's. It doesn't take you being a minister. It just takes a willing heart. And so all I ask everyone is to just dedicate and commit themselves in doing one thing during this election cycle. If we each will do one thing, that could be taking someone to the polls, that could be registering someone to vote, that could be educating someone, it could be simply calling you on the phone and reminding you that election days are happening. One thing is what I'm encouraging people to do. And if we each could do one thing, we can change this world and save this democracy.
Amen. Amen. Now you said one, but I'm going to quote Dorothy Height, who was quoting Mary McLeod Bethune, because if I touch you with one finger, you might feel it, you might ignore it. If I touch you with 2, you'll feel a little tap, 3, 4. But if I take all 5 fingers and ball my fist up, you will feel the mighty blow. So I can see what you're saying about one thing per person, but all of those people together collaborating, there's a mighty blow, making a difference. And that excites me, Rhonda, because sometimes we can feel that, we don't have the power, or where are we going to see a new day, and when are things going to get better? I try to think even of Fannie Lou Hamer. Now, can you imagine being an advocate for voting rights in Mississippi and you're jailed and beaten just for trying to vote? So I think about so many people who have endured physical pain, loss, even lost their lives. And that, I guess, as a child of Alabama, makes me always think we have a job to do. Every generation has a job to do. Now, listen to the name of the podcast again: Envision, Accelerate, Excel. So, if every generation is going to build on the vision that is shared from our predecessors, and we accelerate and advance our opportunity to impact the world, I will say. And since we're talking about political action in particular, D4 Women in Action, you gave us two more key success factors, Rhonda, without maybe even realizing it. But you talked about resources and you talked about fundraising. And fundraising can be, again, another each one do something. Maybe just $5, maybe 5,000, but 1,000 $5 contributions gets you to that same $5,000 investment level. So I want to thank you for sharing with us that resources are important: small resources, big resources, in-kind resources. Rhonda, I seem to remember a time that we were in DC for a board meeting, which was over on Saturday night, and Sunday morning you were up and getting ready to go knock on doors, and you invited many of the rest of us to knock on doors for a senatorial campaign. So I think I'm hearing you say that resources are not only financial, but they also human and in-kind resources. And then you mentioned about educating the next generation. We certainly can't advance and accelerate unless we educate the next generation. You mentioned training candidates, training students to be involved, and then you talked about really getting a good understanding of executive, judicial, and legislative branches. Now, we know, Rhonda, that we are coming up on an election cycle. And you mentioned that all over the country, up and down the ballot, women are winning. That's exciting. That's excellence. What are the other, visible evidence of excellence in the social action space? Yes, candidates win. Talk a little bit about the policy side. What demonstrates excellence in terms of legislative policy?
Oh, yeah, I can do that. So, I'm going to start when I went to law school. When I went to law school, I grew up thinking I was going to be a civil rights attorney. Of course, I'm from Alabama, from Birmingham. So I wanted to be a civil rights attorney, and got to law school. And I realized when I got to law school, I was sitting there and I was working for the governor at the time. My entire time I was in law school, I'm working for the governor. And I started to, my new job with the governor was to basically be his floor liaison for the General Assembly. And so I started dealing with the policy side of things. Any legislation he wanted to pass, I was there trying to make sure that legislation got passed. And so I'm doing that. And in law school, I quickly realized, being in law school, that, litigation is not fair. And litigation also takes a very long time. And so I decided at that particular time, I am going to get into policy, because policy will be the new civil rights for our generation. And I knew that 20 years ago, and I was right.
I got you.
And
You know
so,
who else believed in policy? Thurgood Marshall. Let's talk about collaboration, NAACP, Urban League, Legal Defense Fund, collaborating across groups, because it does take the power of numbers, strength in numbers, to advance policy.
absolutely, absolutely. But I knew policy was going to be it. And if you look right now, we're in a policy battle, and we're
Mhm.
having to fight to maintain those policies. The civil rights movement, when you look at Dr. King and all of them, it was around litigation. Now, however, you ask for some victories. We have had some litigation victories in Delta Sigma Theta.
Okay.
Delta sued the state of Georgia. We sued Texas, and we're in the process this week. They're in court this week in Mississippi around redistricting. For Mississippi and Georgia, the lawsuit was around the elections, when they did all of the changes, line relief, and criminalized you helping people to make sure that they voted. And so we sued those two places. We won the litigation in Texas, and we have received several injunctions in Georgia. And we're now on the battlefield through litigation now in Mississippi around them trying to redraw the different maps and district maps and all of those things. And so litigation is still a great tool. I don't want to say litigation is not a great tool. I'm just saying for this generation, we saw policy being the new battlefield on the ground to keep us, Black folks, down and to keep the past the past. And so we're now fighting, as you all see, every day. Every day we're fighting that all of those advances that we made over the years, that we're not turning back the hand of time. And this administration is trying their best to take us 40 and 50 years back. And I'm going to say they have done a really good job in many aspects. And we're going to fight like HE double hockey sticks in the future to regain some of the losses that we're now seeing from this administration. And I'm just praying that we have the people in place. And that's why voting is so important. The only way out of this mess is voting. The only way out of this mess is voting.
Say it again for the people in the back.
Out of this mess is voting. You want a new administration? You better vote. You want your health care back? You better vote. You want some low grocery bills? You better vote. You want a lower heating bill? You better vote. Voting is the only way we're going to get out of this mess and turn things back around.
That is so true. And if we fall asleep at the wheel, which we know we will not, because we are on fire to inspire the next generation, to have our own generation, and to honor the generations past, because we do not want to see Jim Crow come back. That is an example of policy that kept people down, kept separate living, redlining, neighborhoods, just everything you could think of. Of course, the white colored fountain, separate places to eat, drink, sleep. So we are not going to allow time to turn back, but it's in our power. It's in our power. And Rhonda, we're just so grateful for the leadership that you provide. All of this, you're just crystal clear on it. There's no doubt about the vision for advancement for our people. So as we think about podcast, Envision, Accelerate, Excel, you have laid it all out for us. Getting the vision, catching on fire from the elders, passing that vision on to the next generation, accelerating and strategizing and coming up with new ways. First, it's marching in the streets. Then it's litigation and Thurgood Marshall and NAACP, Legal Defense Fund. And next, it's policy. But in order to enact policy, we have to have responsible elected officials who agree with our needs and who want to address our issues. So as we start to close, Rhonda, I want to offer you an opportunity to say, what's next? What's next just these next few months? You've already said voting is important. For our listeners who are wondering, where should I plug in? What should I do? And you gave us the example, call a friend, take someone to the polls, but even more, what can we do?
So I've been telling people, I need you to lock in. I need you to lock in to everything that's going on. And locking in is staying focused, making sure you are staying aware of everything around you. Is to see something, say something of where we are around this cycle. If you see something that's going on around the electoral process, we need you to tell others. We need you to lock in, educate people, talk about what you're seeing, lock into these election dates, lock into everything that's going on, early voting dates, lock into giving and making donations, lock into knocking on doors. We need you to lock in. I know we're tired. I know we're frustrated. I know we told them. We told them not to do it. We told them exactly what was going to happen. And yes, we were right. We were right. But we now have to lock in because our communities, our people, they need us. So we need to lock in. The next thing we need to do, we need to tap in. And let me tell you about tap in. Tap in is what you're doing right now. Tap into communications, tap into making sure you're on every media channel and getting different information, that you're staying tapped in. Because when you're tapped in and there's a directive, a call to action, you are ready to go. We need you to stay ready so that you don't have to get ready. So tap in and stay locked in to the process.
I love it. And you said stay ready so you don't have to get ready. I think that might have been James Brown right there. At least that's what Chadwick Boseman said when he was playing James Brown. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. On that note, Rhonda, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. You've taught us a lot about envisioning, accelerating, excelling in the foundation space, in the 501c4 space. Do you want to give a shout out to any of your board members? I'm not sure if they're on the line, but in case they are, you want to share who some of the other leaders of this august group are?
Oh yeah, we have a mighty, fantastic board of directors. Our chair is the 26th national president of Delta Sigma Theta, Beverly Evans Smith. We have the 16th national president, Thelma Daly. We have the 22nd national president, Gwendolyn Boyd. Siobhan Arline Bradley, who's the national president of NCNW. We have our current international president, Cheryl Turner. We have our we have co-chair three, a tri-chair, all three of our national social action chairs, and our second national VP, which is Courtney Taylor. We also have our collegiate. And then we also have the national president of NAACP, Derek Johnson. And then we have, oh my goodness, we got some powerhouse. We got Mathoni Quell, we have Craig Robinson, we have Ashley Edite, and we have Tasha Cobb. And so those folks represent from the top people of organizations, of foundations, of raising money, of media icons. I mean, from real estate moguls, we have some top people on our board of directors. I am so excited. And then finally, my last person, I almost forgot. She's the backbone of all things, and that is Kristen Fuwali, our executive director. So Thank you again, Karen, for this opportunity. And thank you for allowing me to shout out my great leadership.
You are so welcome. And please share your website information for people who want to learn more about D4 Women in Action.
Yes, please join us at www.womeninaction.org. And that will give you an opportunity to see all of the work we're doing, the programming, but more importantly, look us up on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and all of the things on social media. Follow us, engage. We have tons of free trainings, webinars, and opportunities.
Well, thank you so much for your leadership in this space. You are one of our modern day role models, and I just believe the best is yet to come. Thank you again. And to our audience, thank you for listening. I'm Karen Stanley, your host of Envision, Accelerate, Excel.